Welcome to the Steve Barkley Ponders Out Loud podcast. As instructional coaches and school leaders, you have a challenge to guide continuous teacher growth that promotes student success. This podcast looks to support you with strategies from our experienced guests and insights that I've gathered across many years. I'm thrilled you're here. Thanks for listening. Leadership coaching. I recently led a conversation with international school leaders, exploring the impact of school leaders being coached, coaching administrative and teacher leaders, and creating coachability within their school organizations. Dr. Andrew Crouse, the superintendent of the American Cooperative School in Paz Bolivia, shared his experiences with coaching and the connected benefits. I'm pleased to share his insights with you. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure in the interactions that I've had with you and your staff and in our one-on-one calls. And I appreciate you sharing some of your thoughts and insights around coaching and especially coaching around leadership. So in the workshop session today, we looked at using coaching for personal growth of the leader. We looked at the leader taking a role in coaching the leadership of his or her organization. I was thinking of that both as administrative leaders and I think coaching teacher leaders is a valuable piece of it too. And then lastly, the whole concept of coachability. So if I can, I'd kind of like to lead you through a look at each of those. So want to start first with some thoughts that you have about your own growth from receiving coaching.
I think well, Steve. I first off, I'm delighted to be here with you today. I always learn something from you every time I talk to you, whether it is a one-to-one coaching session or a large group session. So I'm delighted to be with you here today. We started working together back when I was at the head of school at ISG Jubail. And looking for ways to improve the effectiveness of our middle level leaders. My growth, I think, has been continuous throughout this process as well. Both working with you and working as you worked with our teams, having a deeper and deeper understanding of the coaching model, and getting opportunities to practice. And I think those opportunities to practice and those opportunities to use coaching in a deeper way to express my own vulnerability as a leader and make the process more accessible to my those working with me. I think those have been some of the biggest areas of growth for me around recognizing how I as a leader can model coaching and how impactful that can be.
One of the pieces that I get folks to explore is coaching's ability to drive reflection, and then out of that reflection, being more conscious of some behaviors moving forward. I'm wondering if you have an example of where that happened with you.
So I'll give an example of a time when I was very publicly coached at ISG Jubail. We were in the midst of or kind of in the middle of a coaching initiative that you had been working with our middle level leaders on, and you had also introduced our whole faculty to the idea of coaching. And we were employing at that time one full-time coach on our staff, and so I felt like I should go first and demonstrate being coached. And so during our initial orientation program, our coach coached me publicly, And it was around the topic that I'm sure is very common to superintendents and to principals as well, that not getting around to classrooms and having as deep of conversations about what's going on in classrooms as I would like to. And so our coach coached me on that very, very publicly, and it was a bit terrifying, being that vulnerable at the beginning of the year in front of the whole faculty and not knowing where it might go. But that session itself drove some reflection on what I wanted those visits to the classroom to be, and what the teachers might need from me, or what they could gain from me from those times. And it actually, after reflecting on that and having subsequent conversations with our instructional coach, we developed a new model for some learning walks that we were doing to deepen my engagement with the staff, and also with a small group that went around the learning walk with me. And so I think that's maybe an example of where the initial coaching gave rise to subsequent conversations, and then additional coaching that created changes in what I did and what our faculty did together.
That's a great description of ongoing growth. Now you've spent some time having teams coached together, and then also looking at the coaching of teacher leaders. What are some of the values, benefits that you see of those investments?
At ISG, when we started our coaching initiative initially, we focused a lot on developing coaches that were hired specifically into that role. But we found that the result was not as impactful as we had hoped, because the rest of the system, teachers, administrators, students, didn't really know how to use the coaches. And so we really started looking at our middle level leadership and doing coaching there to get that understanding of coaching more deeply embedded in the school, and also to develop the leadership capacity amongst those middle level leaders. One thing that the coaching really did with our middle level leaders is it gave them a specific context where they could focus on instruction and offer themselves up to their colleagues in a way that wasn't in a supervisory role, but rather in a peer coaching role. And I think that was really powerful for enabling their instructional leadership.
That had big payoff for the school then.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
All
It improved that culture within those departments at ISG. And so then when I moved to ACS here in Bolivia, I recognized the need for our middle level leaders again to have that instructional focus. And so that's why we began this relationship here at ACS as well, and begin developing the leaders in a similar way.
Here's a list of characteristics I found for building coachability: openness to feedback, willingness to learn, adaptability, humility, self-reflection, commitment and dedication, communication skills, trust and respect. Andrew shared an example of coachability. As you hear his story, listen for how many of those characteristics of coachability are present. The other day, you shared a great example with me of a coachable moment occurring on the spot that I think just really speaks to coachability. I'd love if you'd share that with folks listening.
I had a teacher who's one of our heads of department come in, and she talked about some difficulties she was having in her leadership in the department, as well as in her personal role as a teacher as well. And she was talking about there was some division in the staff between those that have been here a very long time and those that are a little bit newer. And she's actually on the side of being a little bit newer. And she made the comment. She said I feel that I'm a little more sensitive to these things, and you, looking at me, are a little more steeled, or a little bit more. You separate this from your professional role. And the conversation kind of continued, but on after that. But it was not until the next day that I was reflecting on this conversation that I said, the idea that she is more sensitive, that's not at all a weakness, that's a strength. And I began to relate it to the coaching model, and I thought that's the strength that I need. I need that sensitivity to divisions in the faculty. And so how could I get this? Well, so I went and asked her if she would be my leadership coach, precisely because she has this sensitivity to these divisions in the faculty. And I suggested that we have a common leadership problem, our challenge, her in her department and myself in the school. And her first reaction was actually, well, how can I do this when I'm having trouble with it? And I said, that's the beauty of the coaching model that we've been working on. Just like when you go into somebody's classroom, you don't have to be an expert. They've told you that they want you to look at these particular things, and you're coming in to see things that they don't readily see. And I said, you can see things that I can't readily see. And so that's why I'm asking you to be my coach. And she agreed.
It's a great example. Great example. That's going to have wonderful impact for you. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate all the work you do.
I closed my session with those international school leaders with these two questions, and I'll leave you with both questions. What is the coachability within your organization? What actions are you taking to increase coachability? Thanks for listening, folks. And if you'd like to follow this conversation up, you can always find me at barkleypd.com. Thanks for listening, folks. I'd love to hear what you're pondering. You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn at Steve Barkley, or send me your questions and find my videos and blogs at barkleypd.com.